in Africa in order to colonize African populations. They had to be anti-indigenous in Australia and in the islands and here in the Americas as well. So it's white supremacy is inherently anti-indigenous on a global scale. Secondly, again, with the oppression Olympics and also not knowing history outside of your own, because African people were not the only chattel slaves. Indigenous people were also in chattel slavery. We were also trafficked. Yes, we very much were.
No.
And we were actually the first taken across the Atlantic. When Columbus got here, he took 200 Taino from here to Europe before they ever brought Africans over here. They were enslaving us and genociding us here, just as they were enslaving and genociding you guys there. What they have done to you guys is what they have done to us. So this playing oppression Olympics is microaggressions in an indigenous life, in an indigenous space, trying to tell us about our oppression and then saying that your oppression is worse than ours, which is insane to me.
Yep.
It is absolutely worse. It's the worst. The things that have happened to the Black people that became African Americans is the worst thing to ever happen to anyone in history, and that's a fact.
So what are you pushing for this? Like, it's the worst, but what are you trying to accomplish pushing that narrative?
There's nothing to accomplish. It's not a narrative.
Well, what do you want from what do you want from us when you say that? Because we can all say that we went through atrocities. We can all say that we went through this oppression, and we can all say that we got colonized. But we all did it. We all got that in a different way. You know what I'm saying? Like she said, the oppression Olympics, and that's not going to get us anywhere. Right now, we need solutions. Right now, we need unity. And you're pushing for division by saying that you guys had it worse than indigenous people, but ultimately we're all being oppressed, and you're playing a tool in their articulated design plan that they imposed here on these lands by having you push lateral violence on another oppressed group of people, and now you're playing in their oppression. You're helping the oppressor. We don't need this divide amongst each other. We get that you and your people went through what they went through. Nobody's taking that away from you. I'm just trying to get what you're trying to.
Yeah, let me answer.
I'm just lost. That's all.
Let me answer, and I'm going to be sincere here. The difference is, there's no objective. I just come up here to have a conversation. I'm not asking for anything from anybody. But the difference here is this: Native Americans were considered people, human beings, and even human beings specifically, for a much longer period of time from today than Black people. And when I said that racism, specifically whiteness, was created to be specifically anti-Black, not anything else, but specifically anti-Black, you Native Americans went from being classified as Negro to being classified as Caucasian to owning slaves to supporting the Confederates to this, that, and the next, whereas African Americans, by definition, do not and cannot ever escape being Black. That's literally impossible.
I've never been classified.
Hold on.
As
I did not interrupt you. I'm almost done.
Yes, you did.
I'm almost done.
I'm almost done.
Look, let's fly. I'm almost done. And Notorious, you were talking about proximity to whiteness. The fact of the matter is, Native Americans have had avenues to enter into whiteness. Whiteness is excluded only from Black people. Anyone else can become white except for Black people. So it's absolutely different.
So, okay, hold on. I'm going to give a quick history here. All right. So, history lesson. We were never considered people. We were called savages. In the Constitution, we were called savages. The only reason why, quote unquote, Mexicans get white as a race is because that's how it allows us to be citizens in our own lands. We're only white for naturalization purposes only. That's it. Secondly, Native Americans were pushed into reservations which were open-air prisons, and they were never allowed to leave. They had to have permission from an Indian agent. That didn't stop until 1954. Native Americans didn't become U.S. citizens in their own lands until 1924. That's tribal Native Americans. Detribalized Native Americans, we didn't get citizenship in our own lands until 1898, when we were supposed to get it after the Mexican-American War, in which the U.S. stole more of our lands from us. So when you see remember that you are talking to indigenous people, and we don't get to change our skin tones either and what we look like either. And this is the
Quite
problem.
so.
You're going to sit here and tell indigenous people about our own oppression and about our own experiences. That's what's crazy to me. And at this point, I think you're a troll or an
I'm not a
ops
troll.
in some way.
I agree.
And you're pushing
Trolling,
the
rage
visual.
baiting,
And
ops,
I'm not
because
racist.
there's no
you are.
common ground here. There's no common ground here.
There is none.
I mean,
You're pushing indigenous erasure. You're revising indigenous history, and you're playing oppression Olympics. You are a tool for white supremacy at this moment in time.
Yeah.
And you are a danger in indigenous spaces at this moment in time.
Probably should get going.
And with that, I'm going to drop because I have to take care of something else. Have a
Please
night.
don't.
Important that we learn.
BGP, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, BG. This is why it's so important that we know our history and we know the history, moreover, of our people, right? Because there's a lot of misinformation and miseducation. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't even know our true history and things like that of that nature, especially given the political climate and the Cheeto man, outing a lot of history, So what happens when you don't know somebody else's history that also has been subjugated is that you only lead with what little you do know. And that can be very harmful and dangerous to that other community. I think that this panel has done very well. Everybody has been respectful in trying to educate you. I hope that you take what you learned today and you apply that. And hopefully next time you come, or if you ever have the opportunity or the honor to be in an indigenous space again, you take what they're telling you and you just absorb it. Because you have been given one narrative and one side of the story. You've been given his story, which is history. You haven't been given our history, our story. So that's very important, right? And when we come to these discussions with an open mind and then with an open heart and the willingness to wanting to learn, we can truly learn. But if we're talking to just get a point across and not talking to listen or dialogue to listen, that's where it can become harmful. So I encourage you to not get discouraged, but to learn and to listen to what each brother and sister had to say, because everything was factual, right? And continue to learn and grow in that way. Because the fact of the matter is we are part of two subjugated and oppressed communities. Neither nor owes anything to each other, but peace and hopefully unity, because we are still under the thumb of the oppressor. So fighting amongst each other does nothing for either or of the communities. So I'm glad that you were here today.
Yeah, so I just want to be very clear here. I only talked about the Black experience in the history of racism, and that was seen as a threat. And so I'm hearing a
That's
whole
not
lot
seen
of,
as a threat.
hold on, please. And after I said why whiteness itself was created, BPG said that I was being anti-indigenous or so on and so forth. And so we have to understand that there is anti-Blackness there by simply stating that literally the creation of race, white and Black, was specifically
You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's not.
Unfortunately, you came here pushing your misinformation, and you got called out for it, and that's okay. Move on with your life in a good way, because that's what we're gonna do here. We're not anti-Black here. We're everybody
Not at
here.
all.
Right
But
now,
what did I
it's
say that
about
was
unity.
misinformation, though?
And what you're doing is you're trying
just
to
educate
create
me. What did I
division
say that was
amongst two
misinformation?
oppressed groups of people who cannot afford to be feuding at the moment over nothing.
Okay, can you just tell me what I said that was wrong?
So,
Okay, I get it. You don't like what I
first, you
said.
said that. Okay, so first of all, you said that Native Americans classified as Negroes. No, never, not once in our history were we ever classified as Negroes. All right, so that right there was a lie. Right there was misinformation. So you know what I'm saying? So when you said that to me told me everything else you said is a possibility that it's a lie. So you have to come correct. That's all I'm saying. And you're coming in here creating division amongst, oppressed groups of people who need unity right now, more than ever. So I'm just gonna leave it with that because you know what you're doing, and we don't have to point that
Okay,
out.
so I'm gonna tell you where I get the factoid that Native Americans were at some point classified, not all of them, but in specific cases classified as Negro. It is from
It's
the
because it was part of Native American erasure. You don't understand. You know, that's part
yes,
of
I know
Native
that.
American erasure. So you pushing that
Yes, I know that.
information is erasure, but it's also
Okay,
contributing to the
hold
erasure
on.
of your
Let
own
me
Don't
finish
say
people.
hold
talking. Let
on.
me
That's
Just
finish
what you
listen
don't
to
talking.
what he's
understand.
saying. Just listen to what he's saying. That's all you have to do is
You're
listen.
not letting me finish my sentence.
No, you're
So
interrupting him while he's mid-sentence
I
about
got you a
educating
trill. I
you.
got you a trill.
Flecker.
thank
Walter
you.
Flecker.
Data, hold on, because we're doing that thing where we're not listening to learn.
You're not listening to
Yes,
learn.
no, and I see the point that you're trying to get across, but see what happens is I feel like you're trying to make a point, and you're trying to get your point across without knowing our POV, without knowing our history. So I would
I know
like
the
to
history.
respectfully, hold on. I would like to thank you for being here. You really got a lot to learn.
I don't.
I think no, she does, because you know what? She's learning something right now. Hopefully.
I
Hopefully.
can't listen.
No,
Hold on.
see, that's what we're not going to do. Thank you for being here. Have a great day. Yeah, we're not
That's
going to do that. We're not doing that.
yeah. That's what happened earlier with another YT person centering themselves as they're the voice of reason, the voice of like, hey, you have to know what your oppression looks like, you know, or to educate. So far, the time she said educate us, like, are you kidding me? At this point in time, this is not something that needs. Moving on, moving on. That's just ruining my, killing my vibe right now.
No, I agree with you, brother. I agree with you. You know, I
Yeah.
try. We
I absolutely love when y'all tell on yourselves. Once again, this is why I say the so-called TikTok natives are not serious about cutting ties with white supremacy. The mere mention of the historical atrocities that black people have endured is enough to trigger them, and that tells us everything we need to know. Take BGP, for example. I've called her out before for spreading pseudo-history about the transatlantic slave trade, yet she continues to push that misinformation. She clings to this narrative that European colonization was purely driven by anti-indigenous sentiment, completely ignoring the fact that Europeans created the concept of race specifically to target and subjugate black people first, before expanding their colonial reach elsewhere. The erasure of African history is so normalized that no one bats an eye. Yet, these same people will pretend to be deeply concerned about the plight and the erasure of Native Americans. That's not solidarity, that's selective outrage. It's anti-blackness, plain and simple. Every time someone like BGP accuses others of playing Oppression Olympics, it's just projection. I've noticed she pulls this move most frequently when it comes to black people. It reeks of all lives matter energy, something no one from a marginalized group should be perpetuating. The irony is rich, especially considering she's sitting on a live stream talking about microaggressions while simultaneously committing one herself. This is what it looks like when main character syndrome meets anti-black microaggressions. When black folks speak on their struggles, someone from another marginalized group feels compelled to shut it down, to silence mentions of black historical trauma, all while preaching unity. It's the textbook definition of a microaggression. What's worse is that many of these folks don't even recognize when they're being anti-black because it's so deeply normalized in their families, their communities, and even in their language. What's interesting is I caught Wagon Burner using the term race bait in a live chat, a blatant white supremacist talking point. That's not something that should ever be coming out of a native person's mouth, especially not one who claims to be educated. You should know better, Wagon Burner. Here's the thing, when you harbor disdain for a marginalized group, whether consciously or subconsciously, it will eventually show itself. It slips out casually in conversation, in your choice of words, in your reactions. And until people are willing to unpack their obsession with whiteness, these underhanded behaviors will continue to rear their ugly heads. This is why I highlighted trends like every Latina needs her white boy and called out people like Latin Les Being. These folks present themselves as allies, as advocates for the oppressed. But in reality, they become casualties of their own ignorance because they refuse to do the work of decolonization. They're so entangled in whiteness that they can't even see when they're perpetuating the very systems they claim to fight against.